All right. Event 1 being released this early. Like or dislike?
Dislike.
A gym or affiliate not allowing anyone to take their shirt off. Like or dislike?
Dislike.
Is monostructural weightlifting gymnastics delineation bullcrap?
I guess I don't know what you mean by that question.
Should we delineate monostructural weightlifting gymnastics?
What's the definition of delineate?
Like the fact that we even have the groups at all.
Should we?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm a weak athlete, and the workout has a heavy weight for me. Do I scale the weight to keep the stimulus or go slower?
It's a lot more that needs to be answered to that question, but I'll say scale.
Do you like event 1 in general?
No.
Okay. We can talk about each thing. We'll go back, but I have this question that I wanted to go over because it kind of fits the thing you said you wanted to talk about. Okay. Where does modal domains, broad times modal domains, where does modal domains end?
Modal domains like small, right? Like tight, fast domains.
What's included in modal domains? So they say we're trying to increase our work capacity across broad times and modal domains.
Oh.
What domains are included?
I guess anything, right?
Explain.
What domains? Like what modalities, or what do you mean? I don't know. I guess I don't
know. So when I hear modal domains, like what first comes to my head is like on land and in water. And then obviously, like I understand the idea behind it is to get better at everything, meaning
I guess like if you're on like a machine,
heavyweights,
bike or rower, a rowboat, you're running, jump rope, and then weightlifting. Yeah, I guess anything, right?
So what is included in modal domains? Is it just physical? Does things like heat include? We're trying to increase our work capacity across broad time modal domain? Is working in heat included in that?
I don't know. It's above my pay grade.
Is Maybe. Working in calorie restriction included in that?
It could be a piece to the puzzle, I bet.
Is working under sleep deprivation included in that?
Probably, especially for first responders.
So I've always been interested in this because like we've talked about this, like there's a difference between the sport of it and doing it for training.
Mm-hmm.
And then I also think there's the component of it of you don't always have to do that thing to get better at it. So let me give you that sleep deprivation example. I don't have to work out regularly being sleep deprived to get a better work capacity while sleep deprived. If I just get fitter in general, then when I'm sleep deprived, I'll be fitter.
Right.
So in your training, like what's included, like where does the modal domains end?
I mean, for me, it's just what we see in the confines of our sport. But I guess for other people, I think it's a debate based off what their goals would be. I think the only people that need to really expand their domains are people that are like first responders, like working a specific modality, I guess, outside of just like the typical ones you see. Other than that, like you said, I think most people are just going to get better at everything, just doing the basic class modalities, right, to increase their capacity and ability everywhere else, even if it is different.
Now, what about that carryover to the games? So, like we know the goal is to increase your work capacity in modal domains. Does that include heat for a games athlete? Actually, my question is, should that include heat for a games athlete?
I would say so.
And not from a training perspective, but from a from not from your perspective as an athlete. Obviously, you're going to get better in the heat just because you know you're going to have to. But I mean, in terms of if you're like the director of the CrossFit Games, do you think it's important to test athletes in heat and like hot environments, like for example outside?
I don't think it's a must. I don't think you have to, but I do think it's appropriate though.
Think they should go out of their way to avoid it?
No, I don't.
Now, let me give you another example. Event 1 of the games this year, instead of being a 4-mile run, 3K row, 2-mile run.
Yeah.
Instead of that, they program 10 rounds per time, 100 double unders, 400-meter run. Now that's 4K of running and 1,000 double unders. If you were to program that, there's a high likelihood that later on in the weekend, if you had any sort of jumping, someone would probably have some sort of calf, Achilles, something strain, especially if he was bounding. Where do you think that line ends at the CrossFit Games of what to test? Because in reality, that's actually not too high volume for someone. There's someone out there that trains that would be fine for. But there's also a lot of people where it would be an issue for them because that would just be such overuse that they would cause them injury.
Right.
So where do you think that ends at the CrossFit Games? My thought is this. If I'm Dave Castro or whoever's testing the programming, the goal would be to preserve the stimulus or push it like right to the edge to where you would have no one get hurt, but they would be like riding the line.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think?
Yeah. I think that line gets rode for sure, just between the delineation of athletes that you see. Like obviously top 10 to bottom 10, it is different. So I do think there's a discrepancy there probably every year. Like every year there's people that come out banged up or injured if close to, you know what I mean? So yeah. I think in terms of like you're asking earlier, where do we draw that line? It's hard to have it be like a black and white line, like knowing, but I think that line is like always like moving upwards, just based off of the performance we see from year to year. And it's just like, I just think that you have to follow the sport closely and see the trends in performances and what people are capable of. And I guess Dave Castro kind of is like in charge of it all, right? Because he's in charge of programming the pinnacle of the sport. So like if say you were a coach, like obviously you need to be tracking and following that and like probably always trying to grow and like try to figure out how to say this, like chase that like ability to like get over that line of like how much it is. I'm having a hard time trying to say what I am.
I know what you mean.
But it's always progressing, right? And I think it's kind of Dave Castro sets the precedent of like where that line is and then seeing what the athlete's performance is like. Because like you compare it to what athletes were capable of in 2012 or whatever, like that line's definitely gone up a lot higher.
I'm actually curious about this. Do you think that volume tolerance has gone up in CrossFit over the last? Obviously, we've seen times get way faster and people get way faster. Do you think that volume tolerance is the same or lower or higher?
I think that it is higher, but I'm going to take like a Bosman approach, and I think it's kind of unnecessarily higher because I don't think it necessarily needs to be high. We've kind of seen that Dave Castro's mentality of programming is very like volume based and like beat you down. Whereas when we've heard Bosman talk about that approach, it's more like he's more execution based and like a little bit maybe more skill bias based. Like there's so many more avenues that can be like explored and trained other than just going harder, longer, heavier, right? Like there's so many other aspects to that.
Yeah.
What do you think?
And I think that's interesting. I'm curious to know because like I think that 100 double under or that workout with 1,000 double unders is a good example because I'm not sure if people's volume tolerance for something like that is any higher now than it was 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Because I think as we've gone on, the confines of what people know that's going to happen at the games has like narrowed. And I think that there's actually athletes who may not be training things like that anymore.
Right. You think people just know that that's like just unconventional and like that's not going to happen?
It's just like people like I think a lot of like I think in 2016 that might have been fair game, and like you might have seen Fraser or like any of those guys or Froning, whatever, training because they're like, if this happens at the games, I need my calves and legs and stuff to be ready.
Yeah. Even if someone
I think we've seen so much time now to know like that's like so dangerous, like that could be so dangerous that they're just not going to include it. Right. And so people don't train it. But it is a form of work capacity, and it is a form of like it is a modal domain.
Yeah, I definitely think it is like something people would look at and like understand the risk. And so it's like, why would I risk that even in training, like preparing for something like that? But
you could ramp up to something like that.
Right. I think it's going to come to a point in the sport where that is constantly evolving. Like in 20 years, if the sport of fitness, CrossFit's still around, like that won't maybe seem so like crazy. Not to say it's like a great test just because, I mean, whatever, but it's like, yeah, people could do that. I think it's slowly going to evolve into what people are capable of. Yeah.
So you think it'll push kind of each year? Like maybe this year it would be appropriate to program that with 5 or 6 or 7 rounds. And then in a few years, it would be more appropriate to program it with 7, 8, 9 rounds and then push up.
For sure. I mean, I think the test is kind of, I wouldn't like love that test even with the 5-round workout, but yeah, but just using it as an example. Yeah.
Yeah. I just mean just the pure volume of.
Yeah. Just like the redundancy and movement. And,
yeah. And just like how many, like that would mess my calves up for a long time, dude.
Oh yeah.
So this is another interesting question I had that kind of builds off of this. So let's take who won. Oh, let's not do last year. Let's do 2021 CrossFit Games.
Okay.
Exact same events. The men do the women's weight. Does Justin Medeiros still win?
I can't. I mean, I'm not as familiar with the events that year.
You want me to pull them up?
Sure.
So my idea with this is I'm convinced that if you were to do this just about any year, a different person would win than the person that won.
I think that would make sense, but because I think that's taking away a massive component of fitness, right? Because you're not testing like strength.
But does it also show how biased our testing is?
I mean, you're removing basically. Well,
let me give you an example.
You're moving strength and like the caliber of stamina and power. Strength, stamina, and power. That's 3 of 10.
So let's say they did this with the men's weight. So this would be the like 350-pound pig flips instead of 510. These thrusters would have been at 135 instead of 185. This would have been.
I think Justin still wins.
You think?
Yeah, I just don't think of Justin as like a standout guy, like especially on the weights. Like I think he's a guy that's so metabolic that he would be able to just crush even on the lighter weights and go fast too.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah, I see your argument. I like that, like the concept of thinking about that. But I think Justin would still win it.
But my point is this: so we take these weights and we're like, this is the appropriate weight for this test, right? Mm-hmm. Let's take this like 185 bar, for example. Mm-hmm. We're like, this is the appropriate weight for this test for men. Mm-hmm. And then this is the appropriate weight for the women, 135 instead. Mm-hmm. Well, if you went the opposite way and instead of decreasing it by 30%, you increased it by everything by 30%. I think Guy probably wins this year.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
what that shows is like, if Dave wanted to make everything even just like 10, 20% heavier, he could basically change the whole outcome of the games. Now, if you were to look at this, would you still think that this would be an appropriate test if everything was 10% heavier or 15% heavier?
That'd be a pretty big jump in load.
If everything was 10% heavier? So this would be a 200-pound thruster.
Yeah.
This would be a 220-pound sandbag. Obviously, these bars would be heavier.
Yeah, it would make it very strength biased and like power output biased.
Do you think that it's not biased right now towards either way? I mean, obviously, you'd have to look at it.
I don't think
a
that
little
it is.
deeper.
I don't think that it's biased towards. I mean, certain years you could like break it down from a percentage and like maybe, but I don't think it's like repeatedly over biased to weightlifting. I mean, last year was the cardio games. You made a YouTube video on that.
Yeah, I think it's getting more biased towards like actual power rather than like, I think a lot of places where people would have put moving your body from A to B, they now put a machine.
I would argue, I think that the games is becoming more endurance biased.
Why do you say that?
Because you look at the
I mean, let's put 2024 away for.
Yeah. Look
this.
at the discrepancy. Look at the discrepancy of athletes alone, from like top caliber games athletes to those in RX divisions or even, let's say, Masters division. It's usually not the load that's the limitation for people, right? Even for someone like me, I've always been strong. I've been able to lift the weights, but the thing that's holding me back, and I know this is anecdotal, but it's just like engine and endurance. And I think the hardest thing to do is push metabolically and metcons and like go fast and cycle rate. So I think it's becoming more and more engine endurance based. Because what's the saying? What's the saying that's like?
Well, this kind of goes back to my question about monostructural weightlifting gymnastics. What would you put an echo bike?
Where would I put it? What type of modality?
Yeah.
I know monostructural.
But the amount of weight you can put into that is it's like how good you are on that depends so much on how much weight you can put into it.
Depending on the time domain.
Depending on the time domain. If every one, let's say, and I can kind of compare it to that Summit Games workout from last year. It was the 9 deadlifts, 6 hang power cleans, 3 shoulder to overhead. And that was like, you had to do that unbroken for a 1 rep max, basically.
Yeah.
If you compare that, I think someone who's good at that would probably also be good. I think it's a very similar stimulus, actually, to a 1-minute echo bike.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously same time domain.
So why is one considered monostructural and one's considered weightlifting, even though you're both moving an external load?
So it's same energy systems being used, right? It's anaerobic, a little bit of ATP, PCR, same energy system used, but
there's both an external load.
It's not an external load. The bike is it?
Yeah, it is.
Why? No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
You're not bearing the weight on your. No, you're not.
How are you not?
You're working against resistance, but you're not moving an external load from A to B.
Yes, you are. The pedals.
No, that's
and the fan.
Cyclical.
Just because it's cyclical doesn't mean it's not an external load.
I don't think that is, because you don't have to pick it up. You can.
Yes, you have to push. You have to push the pedals down, which is actually picking the fan up through the wind.
Yeah, you have to contract your muscles, but you're not picking up the object.
You're lifting the air, like you're pushing the air out of the way. That's the external load. It's the air. If there was no air, you would be able to do an echo bike with nothing, like easy, like you just be able to go. So the external load is the air.
Interesting argument.
I mean, it's like basically doing like a weighted push down.
But then you're saying the same argument. Couldn't use the same argument against running. You're fighting against air, anything.
Yeah, that's why I'm saying I don't like.
There's no
the
such thing as
MWP.
there's no such thing as monostructural.
I don't like delineations. I think running is running and biking is biking.
You only think everything has to be categorized? How do you not categorize anything? So it's just nothing?
Yeah.
That's just like you can't make definitions for words, and you can't have all these genders out here. There's no labels. There's gender identity.
There's no genders. There's no monostructural weightlifting, gymnastics. Just whatever they identify as that day. Yeah, bro. I think
argument.
that, especially with monostructural and weightlifting. I understand gymnastics. You're moving your body without an external load, but in almost all monostructural, you have an external load. The rower, skier.
I was thinking like between weightlifting and like the bike, like you're holding some type of load, or you're moving that load. Like you're not picking the bike up and moving the bike.
No, but you're picking the fans.
Like,
you're moving the
bike
fans.
is just a contraption that you're moving. Yeah, I don't know. That's weird.
I think it's weightlifting.
It's definitely not weightlifting because you don't believe in delineations.
I think if you had to delineate, it could be included in weightlifting.
No way. Just because it makes your muscles work doesn't mean it's weightlifting.
No, it's because you're moving weight.
You're not moving weight.
You are. The weight of the air.
No, air doesn't have weight.
It does at speed. It's resistance.
I'm not a physicist to be able to argue this better.
Anyway, I don't even remember how we got off of that. What were we talking about?
I have no idea. I can probably only chat for like 5 more minutes though, unfortunately.
Okay. All right. So we were talking about where the domains end. Personally, I think for the games, the domains end. I think for the games, the domains end where one thing can be tested without sacrificing another thing. So what I mean by that is like you can test someone's work capacity without having them like the sleep resistance or the sleep deprivation thing. Whether you sleep deprive someone or not, they're probably going to have the same score. And I think that that's where it goes. Then where it needs to go with a lot of the modal domains, like we were talking about that 10-round workout. If you can order the people at 7 and do the amount of physical damage that you want to without injuring anyone, then 7 would be the number to do that workout at. So that's what I think for the games.
You're saying 7, like the middle workout?
Like you know that 10-round double under running workout?
Oh.
If you can do 2 things. 1, order people, and 2, provide enough damage to do the stimulus you want, like on their body, without injuring them. If you can do that at 7 rounds or 5 rounds or whatever, then that's how many rounds that workout should be.
I see what you're saying.
And then for your own training, I think, like we talked about, I think the domains end in, and this is a hard one because it's like, do the domains end in what you perceive you could need, or because this kind of goes back to that bar muscle up thing. Like, I think everyone should learn how to do bar muscle up if possible. But those people perceive that won't help them.
What won't help them?
You know how we were talking about those people that don't want to do bar muscle ups?
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So I think I want to say the domain modal domains ends in your own training where you perceive the limit of your need is. But
Yes.
I also feel like everyone should learn how to do bar muscle ups, and there's people who think that that's not a domain that they need to hit.
Right. I think part of it is like just overcoming the obstacle of from a psychological, obviously physical too, because I think the improvement it'll have on like, I think more psychological than anything, but just like giving yourself more confidence and like being able to do challenging things and like push your body to adapt to different circumstances.
Yeah.
All right, dude, I gotta head out. My wife's gonna kill me. Sorry.
All right. Okay.
We'll have to do our
wait,
why
hold
you're
up.
not.
I'm gonna end the stream. Peace. What I want to talk to you after.